Living with HIV was a nightmare. However, Dr. Joe Muriuki, who was the first Kenyan to publicly disclose his HIV status, will always be considered a hero to many despite passing away 2 days ago. Our reporter Muthoni Maina visited Muriuki's family and has filed the following report.
Putting on a strong fight against all odds, that was the journey the late Dr. Joe Muriuki had to traverse on, depicting the image of a hero and an icon to many. Muriuki's last-born son, Eric, tells us that the family had never discussed his father's HIV status behind closed doors, despite his father's boldness on his status.
By the time I was growing up, I was just hearing it. My mom never talked to me about it directly, like we have a sitting like we're having now. But I guess I get to go to learn around.
Having learned about his father's status through other avenues, his childhood perspective changed, as he would always wonder if his father would always be around to cheer him on.
It was scary. I remember there was a time I asked my mom, whether dad was going to be around to see me graduate. I'd really passed in my exam, so mom was happy. I was in primary school, and I told her, now mom, when I'm passing like this, I'm going to university, is dad still going to be there to see me graduate? Then my mom was just overwhelmed. She went to the bedroom, she cried.
He tells me that at one point, Muriuki had given up on life when the doctor told him that he only had 3 months to live.
But he actually took like a sabbatical. He went back to his rural home and he just waited to die. And he was not dying. So he just said, hey, let me get back to life, because death is not an option.
Eric was constantly forced to prove to his peers that he was HIV negative, an issue that doesn't sit well with him due to the stigma surrounding HIV patients.
It really hurt me. So I got to a point even I would tell people, we go, I test. I've done that several times actually. I've been tested several times just to prove a point. And I discovered that actually, by trying to prove a point, you are actually looking more guilty.
Despite it all, the late Dr. Joe Muriuki fought a good fight, incorporating the challenges faced as he eventually launched the No AIDS Society, a HIV and AIDS non-profit organization, amongst other accomplishments.
So Kenya AIDS Society was one of the biggest achievements, and it is a precursor to many of the organizations we have now. We have a network of people living with HIV and AIDS network. We have several of these organizations, and we have many people now that have been bold enough to come out and say that I am positive and I'm living positively.
Muriuki died at a Nairobi hospital at least 30 years after he was diagnosed with HIV. With fear and stigmatization trending worldwide on HIV and AIDS, there is hope at the end of the tunnel, as the first woman and the third person to date has been cured of HIV after receiving a stem cell transplant.
It is exciting for the field because it's proof that a cure is possible for HIV.
This case, which was presented at the Conference of Retroviruses and Opportunistic Infections in Denver, is also the first involving umbilical cord blood, a newer approach that may make the treatment available to more people. Muthoni Maina, TV 47.